grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Yet beneath the constant clash of steel and screams of battle lies a force that sustains the galaxy's countless factions, the primal instinct to endure. Amid the ruins of empires, the silent ebb and flow of reproduction ensures that life, in all its myriad forms, refuses to yield. Whether through ancient rituals, cold technology, or the unchecked surge of nature, each race in the Warhammer 40,000 universe finds a way to persist. To understand the mechanisms of survival, one must first grasp the galaxy's overwhelming diversity. From the insatiable hunger of the Tyranids to the unyielding determination of the Imperium, the means of reproduction reflect not just biology, but also ideology. The cycle of life and death does not exist in isolation. It is deeply intertwined with the ambitions, fears, and histories of each race. For some, reproduction is a sacred duty, a gift bestowed by their gods or ancestors. For others, it is a weapon, a tool to overwhelm their enemies or cement their dominion over the stars. Yet the process is far from uniform. Across the galaxy, the concept of life itself varies in ways that challenge understanding. What does it mean to reproduce when the boundaries of the organic and mechanical blur? How does one create life in the warp, where chaos reigns supreme? And what of those who seek to cheat death entirely, perpetuating their existence through cloning, reincarnation, or other arcane means? These are not just questions of science, but also of survival and domination in a universe where extinction is the price of failure. This video will journey through these intricate methods, exploring how each race ensures its survival in a cosmos that seeks their destruction. We will uncover the philosophies and practices that underpin their efforts, shedding light on their deeply held beliefs and the technologies they wield. Each approach is a reflection of the race's identity, shaped by their environment, history, and the wars that define their existence. But before delving into specifics, it is crucial to step back and see the bigger picture. The galaxy of the 41st millennium is a vast, hostile place where survival is never guaranteed. Resources are scarce, and every act of reproduction is a gamble, a bet against the crushing weight of entropy. The question is not simply how these races reproduce, but why they do so in the way they do. What drives them to persist in the face of overwhelming odds? What can their methods tell us about the deeper truths of their existence? As we prepare to dive into the practices of individual factions, let us first acknowledge the fragility and resilience of life itself. Across a galaxy torn apart by ceaseless war, the desire to endure binds all races together in a paradoxical unity. Whether spawned in shadowy laboratories, bred in the depths of alien hives, or granted life through divine intervention, each act of creation is both a defiance of oblivion and a declaration of purpose. Now let us turn our gaze to the key players in this drama, those whose means of survival have shaped the galaxy's destiny. Each faction's story is a testament to the unyielding force of life in the face of chaos and destruction. In the vast expanse of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, countless races and factions contribute to the endless struggle for dominance, survival, and expansion. Each of these groups has its own approach to the fundamental need to perpetuate its existence, reflecting the diversity and complexity of life across the stars. To understand the grand tapestry of survival, we must first recognize the key players involved, each with its own unique place in this story of life. Humanity, represented most prominently by the Imperium of Man, is one of the most widespread and enduring forces in the galaxy. Humans rely on their sheer numbers to maintain their presence, but the Imperium's methods of sustaining its population often border on the brutal and oppressive. The countless billions of human worlds each play a role in the ceaseless effort to provide soldiers, laborers, and citizens for the Imperium's war machine. The Eldari, once the dominant power of the galaxy, have fallen from their position of supremacy. These ancient beings are defined by their connection to the warp and their pursuit of perfection. Their dwindling numbers make their survival precarious, and their methods of preservation are steeped in mysticism and ancient traditions. Each subset of the Aeldari, from the disciplined craft-worlders to the hedonistic Drukhari, approaches the challenge of reproduction in ways that reflect their fragmented culture. The Orcs, by contrast, thrive through simplicity and resilience. These greenskin warriors exist in staggering numbers, spreading across the galaxy with relentless energy. Their society is built for conflict, and their methods of perpetuation are as robust and chaotic as their nature. Orcs are not merely a race, but an ecosystem, their very biology and culture inseparable from their role as the galaxy's most pervasive scourge. Among the most alien and enigmatic forces in the galaxy are the Tyranids, a vast swarm of bioengineered organisms. Their methods of propagation are unlike any other race, designed to consume and adapt to every environment they encounter. Each Tyranid creature is a living weapon, and their numbers seem endless, making them one of the greatest threats to all life in the galaxy. The Necrons, in stark contrast to the biological chaos of the Tyranids, represent an ancient and mechanical form of existence. These beings, once flesh and blood, have transcended mortality through their transfer into living metal bodies. Their approach to survival reflects their disdain for the fragility of organic life, relying on technologies from an age long past to ensure their continued existence. The Tau, a younger race on the galactic stage, are driven by a philosophy of unity and expansion. Their highly organized society has allowed them to thrive despite their relatively short history. While they lack the overwhelming numbers of the Imperium or the raw power of the Orcs, their adaptability and technological ingenuity have made them a rising force. The forces of chaos, drawn from the influence of the warp, encompass a wide array of beings, from corrupted humans to demonic entities. Their connection to the immaterial plane allows them to defy conventional limitations of life and death, creating and sustaining their followers through means that blur the line between reality and madness. Among the galaxy's lesser-known but equally vital groups are the Leagues of Votan, often referred to as the Kin. These hardy and pragmatic beings operate with a level of independence and technological prowess that sets them apart. Their methods of survival are deeply rooted in their shared culture and the ancient wisdom of their ancestors. Finally, there are countless other minor factions and species scattered across the stars. Some are isolated and struggling to endure, while others are remnants of once great civilizations. Each contributes, in its own way, to the story of survival, shaping the galaxy's ever-changing landscape. From the fungal hordes of the Hrud to the mysterious Rakgol, every race and species adds a unique voice to the cacophony of life in the 41st millennium. As we move forward, we will explore how each of these groups ensures its survival. Their methods are as diverse as their natures, ranging from the biological to the mechanical, the mundane to the supernatural. Together, they form the complex web of existence that defines the Warhammer 40,000 universe. The reproductive mechanisms of the various factions and species in the Warhammer 40,000 universe are deeply tied to their origins, environments, and philosophies. To understand how these races sustain themselves, we must first examine the foundations of their biology and societal structures, as well as the circumstances that shaped their reproductive methods. These processes are often a reflection of the challenges they face in a galaxy defined by war, scarcity, and existential threats. For humanity, reproduction is rooted in the vast diversity of conditions across millions of planets under the Imperium's control. Standard biological reproduction among humans mirrors their ancient evolutionary origins, relying on natural processes to produce offspring. However, the Imperium's immense demands for soldiers and workers have led to artificial enhancements to this process. Hive worlds often employ mass breeding programs to ensure a constant supply of laborers, while Imperial Guard recruitment pulls heavily from these overpopulated environments. Technologies such as cloning and genetic manipulation are sometimes employed, though these are usually reserved for specialized purposes. The combination of natural reproduction and systematic control ensures humanity's vast numbers remain its greatest strength, even as individuals are often treated as expendable assets. The Aldari, on the other hand, face an entirely different set of challenges. Once a galaxy-spanning civilization, the Aldari now struggle with dwindling numbers due to the catastrophic consequences of their past decadence. Their survival depends on careful population management and spiritual safeguards. Among the Craftworlders, reproduction is a deeply spiritual and communal process, often requiring psychic guidance to ensure the creation of new life aligns with their cultural traditions. This deliberate approach reflects the precariousness of their situation, as every new life is a precious addition to their population. Unlike the humans' sheer numbers, the Aldari prioritize quality and potential, investing heavily in the upbringing and protection of their offspring. The Orcs, by contrast, thrive on simplicity and adaptability. Their method of reproduction is unlike that of most other races, relying not on traditional biological processes, but on a symbiotic relationship with fungal spores. Orcs do not give birth in the conventional sense. Instead, their spores are released into the environment after their death or even during their lives, propagating in suitable conditions. These spores eventually develop into new orcs or other elements of their ecosystem, such as squigs or Gretchen. This system ensures their resilience, allowing them to flourish in virtually any environment, provided the conditions are right for their spores to grow. It also means that orcs are never truly eradicated, as even a single survivor can lead to the rebirth of an entire population over time. The Tyranids approach reproduction as a tool of conquest and adaptation. This vast hive organism views reproduction not as an individual act, but as a collective process orchestrated by the hive mind. Through the use of bioships and specialized organisms, the Tyranids create an endless array of creatures tailored to specific tasks and environments. Their reproductive process involves absorbing the genetic material of consumed species and environments, using this information to engineer new forms. Each Tyranid organism is grown with a purpose, emerging fully formed and ready to fulfill its role in the swarm. This method ensures unparalleled efficiency and adaptability, making the Tyranids one of the most formidable forces in the galaxy. The Necrons, in stark contrast to organic reproduction, have long abandoned biological processes altogether. Their transformation into mechanical beings during the War in Heaven removed the need for traditional reproduction. Instead, their numbers are maintained through the reactivation of dormant Necron warriors stored within their vast tomb worlds. This process is a stark reminder of their ancient loss of mortality and their reliance on technologies created millennia ago. Unlike other races, the Necrons do not grow or evolve their population. They simply awaken what already exists, relying on their technological superiority to sustain their presence in the galaxy. These initial examples illustrate the stark differences in how various factions sustain their populations. From the natural processes of humanity to the technological resurrection of the Necrons, each method reflects the unique challenges and philosophies of the races involved. This is only the beginning of a much broader exploration into the diverse and often alien ways in which life persists across the Warhammer 40,000 universe. As we delve deeper, the intricacies of reproduction among the other races will reveal even more about their role in the endless struggle for survival. In the tapestry of reproduction across the galaxy, many other factions have their own unique approaches that reflect their distinct philosophies, environments, and challenges. These methods, while diverse, all serve the same purpose: to sustain their species in a universe defined by conflict and survival. The Tau, one of the youngest races to rise to prominence, rely on a structured and methodical approach to reproduction that mirrors their societal organization. Their population is divided into castes, each serving a specific function within their empire. Reproduction within the Tau is regulated to maintain genetic stability and ensure the balance of their caste system. Pairings are often arranged based on genetic compatibility, and the needs of the greater good, minimizing randomness and ensuring that each new generation is optimized for its role in their society. The Tau's technological sophistication further aids their population management, providing them with the tools to carefully monitor and sustain their growth, even as their empire expands into new territories. Chaos-aligned factions, often formed from corrupted individuals or groups, approach reproduction in ways that defy conventional understanding. Humans who fall under the influence of chaos may continue to reproduce in traditional ways, but their offspring are often touched by the warp, leading to mutations or unnatural abilities. Demonic entities, however, do not reproduce in the biological sense. Instead, they are manifestations of the warp's energies, brought into existence through belief, emotion, and the will of the Chaos Gods. The process of creating new demonic entities is deeply tied to the tides of the warp and the rituals performed by mortal followers. This connection to the immaterial plane allows chaos to sustain its presence without relying on the limitations of biology. The Leagues of Votan, or Kin, have a pragmatic and technologically advanced approach to reproduction that reflects their focus on resilience and efficiency. Their population is maintained through cloning technologies, which allow for precise control over genetic traits and ensure uniformity within their society. This method eliminates many of the uncertainties associated with natural reproduction, enabling the kin to sustain their numbers even in the harshest conditions. Cloning also reinforces their sense of shared identity, as the genetic material of each generation is carefully preserved and replicated. This method ensures the continuity of their culture and traditions while allowing them to adapt to new challenges. The Drukhari, a splinter faction of the Eldari, take a more sinister approach to survival. Their society, centered in the dark city of Komora, thrives on the suffering of others. While the Drukhari can reproduce biologically, their focus on personal pleasure and the pursuit of immortality often leads them to rely on alternative means to sustain their numbers. The use of genetic manipulation, cloning, and the consumption of life force are common practices among the Drukhari. This grim approach reflects their descent into hedonism and the lengths they will go to avoid the fate that befell their ancestors. Smaller and less understood races, such as the Hrud, Rakgol, and Korl, also contribute to the galaxy's biological diversity. The Hrud, for example, are known for their rapid reproduction and short lifespans, which allow them to adapt quickly to changing environments. Their reproductive processes are closely tied to their survival strategy as scavengers and nomadic settlers. The Rakgol, in contrast, display a brutal and chaotic approach to reproduction that mirrors their savage nature. Their methods are often shrouded in mystery, as their interactions with other species rarely leave survivors. While these examples showcase a wide range of approaches, they all underscore a central truth. Reproduction in the Warhammer 40,000 universe is not merely a biological necessity, but a reflection of each race's identity and struggles. Whether shaped by natural evolution, technological intervention, or the influence of otherworldly forces, the methods by which life continues are as varied as the stars themselves. Each faction's approach to reproduction is a testament to their resilience and determination to endure, no matter the cost. As we progress, the intricate details of these processes and their implications will reveal even more about the galaxy's relentless drive for survival. In the vast and unforgiving galaxy of Warhammer 40,000, some races have developed truly extraordinary and unconventional methods of reproduction, reflecting their unique circumstances and the challenges they face. These methods often represent pivotal changes or decisions in their history, showcasing their adaptability or their sheer alien nature. One of the most fascinating examples lies within the Orcs, whose method of reproduction is not only distinct but central to their dominance. Their existence is bound to a bioengineered system created by the ancient Old Ones during a desperate war. Unlike any other race, Orcs reproduce through fungal spores, which are released both during their lives and upon death. These spores embed themselves in the environment, often unnoticed, and over time sprout into new orcs, as well as the various creatures that form their ecosystem. This biological mechanism makes them incredibly difficult to eradicate, as even a single surviving orc can eventually lead to the resurgence of an entire population. This key feature of their biology reflects a decision made by their creators to ensure the orcs' near indestructibility, a design that has allowed them to thrive across countless worlds. The Tyranids present another strikingly unique approach to reproduction. For them, the creation of life is entirely utilitarian, driven by the overarching will of the hive mind. Each organism within the Tyranid swarm is not born in a traditional sense, but grown and shaped in vast biopools aboard their hive ships. These pools recycle the genetic material and biomass harvested from devoured worlds, repurposing it to create new creatures perfectly adapted to their current needs. This system represents a decision of ultimate efficiency. No resource is wasted, and every life form serves a specific purpose. Furthermore, the hive mind can adapt Tyranid genomes on a massive scale, creating entirely new strains of creatures to overcome emerging threats. This ability to evolve at will is what makes the Tyranids one of the most adaptable and terrifying forces in the galaxy. The Necrons, though devoid of biological reproduction, exhibit a key decision in their transition from organic beings to immortal constructs. Long ago, the Necrontyre faced the relentless assault of their own mortality, a result of their fragile biology and the harsh conditions of their homeworlds. Their solution was a monumental and irreversible decision: to transfer their consciousness into bodies of living metal, shedding their organic forms entirely. This process, known as biotransference, ensured their survival, but came at the cost of their souls and individuality. The Necrons' immortality and ability to repair their bodies are their answer to the need for perpetuation, even if it means existing in a state far removed from life as it was once understood. Among the Aeldari, a particularly unique phenomenon is the creation of soul stones and their role in preserving the essence of their people. While reproduction among the Aeldari continues through biological means, their spiritual practices have undergone significant evolution. With the birth of Slaanesh, the Aeldari became acutely aware of the fragility of their souls, which would be consumed upon death. To counter this, the craft world Aeldari developed soul stones to capture the essence of their fallen. While this does not directly impact their reproductive methods, it represents a critical decision in their survival strategy, ensuring that their cultural and spiritual legacy endures despite their diminishing numbers. Another extraordinary example can be found in the Drukhari's approach to reproduction and survival. While they are biologically similar to their craft world kin, the Drukhari have adopted a darker path, relying less on traditional reproduction and more on methods that exploit their unique connection to suffering and the warp. They use their mastery of genetic manipulation and life force harvesting to create new members of their society or to restore their own vitality. This reliance on pain and torment as a sustaining force reflects their desperate measures to maintain their existence in the shadowy depths of Kamara. These examples highlight the lengths to which various races have gone to adapt and ensure their survival. Whether through ingenious biological engineering, irreversible technological transitions, or unorthodox spiritual practices, these pivotal decisions define the essence of their existence and set them apart from one another. Each method is not merely a means of reproduction, but a reflection of the history, culture, and philosophy that shapes their place in the galaxy. These unique approaches underline the galaxy's diversity and the extraordinary measures life will take to endure against all odds. The ability of each race in the Warhammer 40,000 universe to reproduce is not just a biological necessity, it is the foundation of their survival and influence. If certain factions were to lose their capacity to perpetuate their populations, the consequences would be profound, altering the balance of power in the galaxy and potentially leading to the collapse of entire civilizations. For the Imperium of Man, a loss of reproductive ability would spell disaster on a catastrophic scale. The Imperium's strength lies in its sheer numbers, with countless billions of citizens across innumerable worlds providing the soldiers, workers, and administrators that keep its vast bureaucracy and war machine functioning. Without the ability to replenish these ranks, the Imperium's defenses would crumble under the relentless onslaught of its enemies. The constant attrition from war, disease, and internal strife would outpace any technological stopgap measures, leading to the slow but inevitable extinction of humanity as a galactic force. Entire sectors would fall into anarchy, and once proud bastions of human civilization would be abandoned to alien conquest or chaos. The Eldari, already teetering on the brink of extinction, would face an even more precarious fate if their ability to reproduce were lost entirely. Every new Eldari life is a precious resource, and their carefully balanced society would unravel without the ability to sustain even their limited numbers. The craft worlds would become ghostly relics, their halls empty and their traditions forgotten. Worse still, the fall of the Eldari could lead to a significant strengthening of Slaanesh, as the souls of the remaining Eldari are consumed by the Chaos God. The loss of this ancient race would also mean the disappearance of their immense knowledge, psychic abilities, and technologies, leaving the galaxy poorer in its diversity and more vulnerable to the predations of chaos and other threats. For the Orcs, the consequences would be uniquely dramatic. Their method of spore-based reproduction has allowed them to dominate the galaxy in sheer numbers, making them one of the most widespread and resilient forces. If this biological mechanism were disrupted, the Orcs' seemingly endless tide of warriors would dwindle. Without their natural ability to infest planets and propagate their species through spores, the Orcs' ability to recover from defeats and establish new footholds would be severely hindered. Over time, their war bands would shrink, their influence would wane, and the once unstoppable green tide would become little more than scattered remnants, a shadow of their former strength. The Tyranids would face a similarly catastrophic outcome. Their entire existence revolves around the continuous consumption of biomass to sustain and create new organisms. If their reproductive capability were somehow severed, perhaps through a disruption of the hive mind's ability to coordinate or a loss of biopool functionality, they would cease to grow and adapt. The Tyranids' strategy of overwhelming their enemies through numbers and tailored evolution would falter, leaving their existing fleets vulnerable to attrition. Starved of new creations, the Tyranids would ultimately collapse under the combined efforts of their enemies, their once mighty swarms reduced to scattered remnants adrift in the void. The Necrons, while not reliant on traditional reproduction, would also face significant challenges if they could no longer reactivate dormant warriors or repair damaged ones. Their finite numbers are already a limiting factor, and an inability to maintain their forces would leave them increasingly vulnerable to attrition in their conflicts with other factions. Over time, their tomb worlds would become desolate monuments to their lost empire, and their dream of reclaiming the galaxy would be extinguished. The Necrons' technological mastery and ancient wisdom would vanish with them, erasing one of the most enigmatic and formidable powers in the galaxy. The Tau, as a younger and more vulnerable race, would be particularly at risk if their population growth were interrupted. Their carefully managed caste system relies on a steady supply of new individuals to maintain balance and ensure the smooth functioning of their society. A disruption in reproduction would create instability, as the demands of expansion and defense would outstrip their ability to meet them. Their dreams of unifying the galaxy under the greater good would falter, and their empire would likely fragment under the pressure of external threats and internal resource shortages. The loss of reproductive capacity among chaos-aligned factions would also have significant repercussions. While demonic entities are not reliant on biological reproduction, the mortal followers of chaos are. Without a steady influx of new converts and cultists, the influence of chaos in the material realm would diminish. The demonic forces, though still formidable, would struggle to maintain their foothold without mortal agents to enact their will. This weakening of Chaos's influence could tip the scales of power, offering the Imperium and other factions a rare reprieve from its relentless assaults. The potential collapse of these key races would lead to a cascading series of events across the galaxy. Planets once ruled by these factions would fall into chaos, becoming battlegrounds for those seeking to claim the remnants of their civilizations. The power vacuum left behind would embolden opportunistic factions, sparking new conflicts and alliances. The delicate balance of power that defines the Warhammer 40,000 universe would be shattered, leading to an era of unprecedented uncertainty and change. The reproduction methods of the various races in the Warhammer 40,000 universe are a subject of endless fascination and speculation within the community. Certain unique aspects stand out, sparking debates and fueling discussions about the deeper implications of these systems and their roles in shaping the galaxy. These elements highlight not just biological or technological peculiarities, but also philosophical and existential questions about life in the grim darkness of the far future. One of the most intriguing aspects is the Orcs' fungal-based reproductive cycle and the implications of their ecosystem. Unlike most other races, Orcs are less like individual organisms and more like a collective organism spread across planets. Their spores can survive in extreme environments, lying dormant until conditions are right for growth. This has led to endless speculation about the ultimate extent of their reach. Could Orc spores have spread to regions of the galaxy yet untouched by the major factions? Are there uninhabited planets teeming with Orc ecosystems, waiting for the slightest disturbance to unleash an unstoppable tide? This decentralized and resilient reproduction raises questions about whether the Orcs could ever be fully eradicated, even with a concerted effort from all other factions. For the Eldari, one of the most widely discussed topics is the cultural and spiritual impact of their declining birth rates. The Eldari were once a prolific and dominant race, but the cataclysmic birth of Slaanesh left them scattered and diminished. Among fans, the debate often revolves around whether their decline is purely biological or tied to their psychic connection to the warp. Does their reduced ability to reproduce stem from physical limitations, or is it influenced by their existential guilt and fear of their souls being devoured by Slaanesh? These discussions often delve into the psychological and mystical aspects of Eldari reproduction, exploring how their cultural trauma shapes their population dynamics. The Tyranids' adaptive evolution also garners significant attention, particularly the potential for unforeseen adaptations. The hive mind's ability to engineer entirely new life forms based on absorbed genetic material has led to speculation about what could happen if Tyranids were to encounter new and exotic species. Could they absorb the unique traits of a race like the Necrons, whose biology has been replaced by necrodermis? What about chaos-touched organisms or beings tied to the warp? These hypothetical scenarios explore the limits of the Tyranids' reproductive adaptability and the potential consequences of their encounter with truly alien forces. Another frequently debated topic is the reproduction of the Drukhari and their reliance on dark practices to sustain their numbers. Unlike their craft-world kin, the Drukhari do not prioritize traditional reproduction, focusing instead on harvesting the life force of others to sustain themselves. This approach has led fans to question the long-term viability of their population. If the Drukhari's life force harvesting methods were disrupted, would they be able to recover through traditional reproduction, or has their reliance on this method fundamentally altered their biology? The dark and macabre nature of their practices makes them a popular subject of fan theories and speculation. The Necrons, despite their mechanical nature, are often discussed in the context of their inability to reproduce. Fans frequently ponder the implications of their finite numbers and whether they could develop new methods to replenish their forces. Could the Necrons, with their unmatched technological prowess, find a way to reverse engineer biological reproduction or create entirely new synthetic life forms? This line of speculation raises questions about their adaptability and whether their ancient pride would allow them to embrace such methods. Chaos also presents a fertile ground for discussion, particularly the ways in which the warp and its energies influence reproduction. For mortals aligned with chaos, the creation of new life is often tied to the corrupting influence of the chaos gods. This has led fans to explore how this corruption manifests in offspring, from physical mutations to psychic abilities. Some speculate about the possibility of entire populations being born under the influence of chaos, raising questions about the long-term effects of such widespread taint. Finally, the Tau have sparked curiosity due to their caste-based society and the tightly controlled nature of their reproduction. Fans often debate whether this rigid system is sustainable in the face of their empire's rapid expansion. Could genetic stagnation become a threat, or will the Tau develop new technologies to enhance their genetic diversity? These discussions often delve into the tension between their ideological commitment to the greater good and the biological needs of a growing empire. These unique aspects of reproduction in the Warhammer 40,000 universe not only define the survival strategies of each race, but also inspire endless fan discussions about their broader implications. The intersection of biology, technology, and philosophy ensures that this topic remains a rich source of fascination, contributing to the depth and complexity of the setting. The vast and diverse factions of the Warhammer 40,000 universe are often defined by extraordinary individuals who exemplify the unique traits, goals, and philosophies of their races. These figures, while not directly tied to the mechanics of reproduction, play pivotal roles in shaping the survival strategies and cultural practices of their respective species. Their actions, decisions, and legacies often reflect the larger narrative of their race's struggles and triumphs. Among humanity, Sebastian Thor stands as a symbol of resilience and reform. As a leader who rose during the Age of Apostasy, his influence reshaped the Imperium in a time of unparalleled corruption and despair. Thor's leadership qualities, marked by unwavering faith and a deep connection to the common people, revitalized humanity's morale and ensured the continuation of the Imperium's unity. His strengths lie in his ability to inspire and organize, yet his legacy also highlights the Imperium's reliance on charismatic figures to counterbalance the crushing bureaucracy and stagnation that often threaten its survival. In the Aldari ranks, Yvraine, the emissary of Inead, represents a beacon of hope for a dying race. Her existence is deeply tied to the concept of renewal and the potential salvation of the Aldari through the awakening of their god of the dead. Yvraine's psychic prowess and her role as a spiritual guide offer the Aldari a path forward, but her presence also brings conflict and division among her people. Her strength lies in her vision and ability to inspire unity, but her reliance on a fragile and unproven path exposes her to immense risk, both from within her race and from external threats. For the Orcs, Gazk'Kul Mag Uruk Thraka is an unmatched warlord whose influence extends far beyond his immediate conquests. Gazk'Kul embodies the Orc instinct for war and expansion, rallying countless warbands under his banner through sheer force of personality and cunning. His ability to unite Orcs across the galaxy showcases the latent potential of their decentralized society. However, his obsession with constant warfare leaves little room for long-term stability or reflection, and his ambitions often lead to catastrophic conflict for both his enemies and his own forces. Within the Tyrannid Collective, the Swarm Lord stands as a unique manifestation of the Hive Mind's will. This creature is not an individual in the traditional sense, but a recurring and highly adaptive bioform designed to outthink and outfight the Tyrannid's most formidable foes. The Swarm Lord's strength lies in its strategic brilliance and its ability to learn from and counter its enemies' tactics. However, its existence underscores the impersonal and predatory nature of the Tyrannids, as it is created and destroyed purely at the discretion of the Hive Mind, with no permanence or identity beyond its immediate purpose. The Necron Overlord Imhotep. The Storm Lord exemplifies the cold precision and strategic dominance of his race. As a brilliant tactician and an unrelenting force on the battlefield, Imhotep represents the Necron's potential to reclaim their lost empire. His strengths include his mastery of Necron technology and his ability to instill fear in his enemies. However, his arrogance and the inflexibility of his plans often limit his effectiveness in unpredictable situations, reflecting the broader struggles of the Necron race to adapt to a galaxy that has evolved beyond their ancient dominance. The Tau Empire finds its iconic leader in Commander Farsight, a figure who challenges the rigid traditions of his society. Farsight's exceptional combat skills and tactical acumen have made him a legendary hero among the Tau. Yet his decision to break away from the greater good and establish his enclave highlights the tension between individual autonomy and collective ideology within the Tau. His strength lies in his independence and willingness to innovate, but his separation from the Empire has left him isolated, both politically and strategically. For the Drukhari, Asdrubal Vect is an emblem of cunning and ruthlessness. As the supreme overlord of Kamara, Vect has maintained his position of power through manipulation, betrayal, and an unparalleled understanding of the dark politics of the Drukhari. His strengths lie in his intelligence and ability to exploit others for his gain, but his reign is one of constant paranoia, as his countless enemies within the Drukhari hierarchy scheme to overthrow him. In Chaos, Abaddon the Despoiler serves as the quintessential figure of determination and ambition. As the leader of the Black Legion, Abaddon embodies the relentless drive of Chaos to overthrow the Imperium. His strength lies in his ability to unite disparate Chaos warbands and lead them in campaigns of unmatched destruction. However, his reliance on the chaotic and often unpredictable nature of his allies introduces an inherent instability to his plans, mirroring the volatile essence of Chaos itself. These individuals, each in their unique way, represent the challenges and aspirations of their respective races. Their qualities, both strengths and flaws, not only shape their own destinies, but also influence the survival and evolution of their people. Through their actions and legacies, the broader themes of reproduction, survival, and identity in the Warhammer 40,000 universe are brought into sharp focus. The reproduction methods of the many races in the Warhammer 40,000 universe leave room for numerous unanswered questions and speculative theories, many of which spark heated debates among fans. These unresolved mysteries touch on the biology, culture, and even the potential evolution of these species, offering a glimpse into the complexities of life in the grim darkness of the far future. One of the most enduring questions revolves around the Orcs' seemingly indestructible reproductive cycle. While their spore-based method is well documented, the exact mechanisms behind its success and resilience remain a topic of speculation. How do Orc spores adapt to different planetary environments so effectively? Some theories suggest that their creators, the Old Ones, imbued the spores with a form of latent genetic programming, allowing them to detect and adjust to local conditions. Others wonder if Orcs themselves could evolve further, creating entirely new subspecies in response to specific environmental challenges. This adaptability raises concerns about whether an unchecked Orc infestation could lead to unforeseen mutations, potentially creating an even more dangerous strain of Orc. The Eldari's decline has also fueled many questions. One of the most debated topics is whether their reproductive challenges are purely biological or tied to their connection to the warp. Some argue that the psychic trauma of their past, including the birth of Slaanesh, has created a lingering effect on their ability to produce offspring. Could their cultural practices, which focus on preserving their souls rather than prioritizing population growth, inadvertently hinder their recovery? Additionally, the emergence of Ennead and the growing influence of Yvraine have sparked theories that the Eldari could find new ways to restore their numbers, potentially through previously unknown psychic or spiritual means. The Tyranids, with their bioengineered reproductive processes, present their own share of mysteries. A common question centers on the limits of their adaptability. While they are known to consume and incorporate the genetic material of other species, it remains unclear whether there are forms of life they cannot assimilate. What would happen if they encountered entirely mechanical entities like the Necrons? Could they adapt to the chaos-corrupted biology of the warp-touched species? These unanswered questions open the door to endless possibilities, including the idea that the Tyranids could eventually encounter something they cannot consume, forcing the hive mind to rethink its entire strategy. The Necrons, despite their lack of traditional reproduction, also raise significant questions. One of the most intriguing mysteries is whether their ancient technologies hold the potential for creating entirely new forms of life. Could the Necrons, in their quest for galactic domination, discover a way to produce synthetic beings capable of reproducing themselves, effectively creating a new race under their control? Additionally, some speculate that the Necron dynasties may harbor undisclosed projects aimed at reversing their biotransference, potentially allowing them to regain some semblance of organic life. Chaos introduces its own complexities, particularly in the relationship between mortal followers and the demonic entities they worship. One question that often arises is whether Chaos has the ability to create entirely new life forms independent of mortal interference. Could the Chaos gods manifest beings that exist purely in the material realm, or are they forever tied to the warp? Another debated topic is the nature of reproduction within Chaos-tainted populations. Are the mutations seen in Chaos cults random, or do they follow a pattern dictated by the warp's influence? If so, could certain mutations be purposefully engineered by the Chaos gods to create entirely new species aligned with their will? The Tau's tightly controlled reproduction methods have also raised questions about the long-term stability of their society. While their caste-based system has proven effective, it remains uncertain whether it is sustainable in the face of rapid expansion and increasing external threats. Could genetic stagnation or unforeseen environmental pressures force the Tau to rethink their approach? Some theories propose that their technological advancement could eventually allow them to bypass traditional reproduction entirely, creating genetically engineered individuals tailored to specific roles. However, this raises ethical questions about the limits of their philosophy and whether such practices would align with their vision of the greater good. Smaller and less understood races also contribute to the mystery. The Hrud, for instance, are known for their rapid reproduction and mysterious life cycle, but little is known about the exact mechanics of their population growth. Some speculate that their ability to proliferate so quickly is tied to their unique connection to entropy and decay, suggesting that their reproductive processes may be influenced by forces beyond simple biology. Similarly, the rock ghoul's brutal and chaotic nature leaves much to be explored about how they sustain their numbers, especially given their seemingly self-destructive tendencies. These unanswered questions and speculative theories not only deepen the intrigue of Warhammer 40,000's lore, but also highlight the diversity and complexity of life in the galaxy. Each mystery invites exploration, debate, and storytelling, ensuring that the topic of reproduction remains an endless source of fascination within the community. The long-term consequences of how races in the Warhammer 40,000 universe reproduce carry profound implications for the galaxy's future. As the endless conflicts continue to shape the fate of countless worlds, the ability, or inability, of each species to sustain their populations will determine the balance of power and survival in this grim setting. The outcomes of these dynamics are as diverse as the methods of reproduction themselves, ranging from potential resurgence to eventual extinction. For humanity, the Imperium's sheer reliance on its vast numbers is both its strength and its greatest vulnerability. Overpopulation and exploitation on hive worlds create a seemingly infinite supply of soldiers and workers, but this system is not sustainable indefinitely. As environmental degradation, resource depletion, and internal strife continue to mount, the Imperium may face a future where its ability to replenish its ranks is no longer guaranteed. Should this occur, the galaxy could witness the slow collapse of humanity's dominance, leaving room for other factions to rise. On the other hand, advancements in cloning and genetic engineering, if embraced by the Imperium, could provide a path to stabilizing their population. However, such a shift would likely clash with the Imperium's rigid dogma, creating internal conflicts and ethical dilemmas. The Eldari's precarious existence may hinge on whether they can adapt to their dwindling numbers. With the rise of Aeneid and the efforts of the Inari, a potential pathway for salvation exists, but it is fraught with uncertainty. If the Eldari successfully restore their numbers and overcome their spiritual crisis, they could once again become a dominant force in the galaxy, using their advanced technologies and psychic powers to reshape the balance of power. However, failure to achieve this resurgence would mean their slow but inevitable extinction, and with it, the loss of one of the galaxy's most ancient and sophisticated cultures. The ripple effects of their disappearance would be profound, as the Eldari have long served as a bulwark against the forces of chaos. The Orcs, with their unique spore-based reproduction, are seemingly eternal in their resilience. However, long-term questions remain about the potential evolution of their species. If their spore cycle were disrupted, whether through technological intervention or natural changes, it could lead to a significant reduction in their numbers, altering the galaxy's chaotic equilibrium. Conversely, an unchecked orc infestation could eventually overwhelm even the most fortified factions, turning vast swaths of the galaxy into perpetual war zones. The orcs' ability to adapt and thrive makes them one of the few races that seem almost impervious to extinction, but their lack of long-term planning means their growth could spiral into unforeseen consequences. The Tyranids pose one of the most existential threats to all other life forms, but their reliance on consuming biomass to reproduce presents a double-edged sword. As the galaxy's resources dwindle, the Tyranids may find themselves unable to sustain their endless swarms, leading to the stagnation or fragmentation of their fleets. However, if the Tyranids adapt to exploit non-organic materials or find new feeding grounds beyond the galaxy, they could evolve into an even greater threat. Their long-term survival is intrinsically linked to their ability to outpace their own consumption, and their future could redefine the galaxy's ecosystem entirely. The Necrons' lack of traditional reproduction places them in a unique position. Their finite numbers mean that every loss is a significant setback, but their technological mastery and near immortality provide them with a degree of stability that other factions lack. In the long term, the Necrons could potentially outlast many of their organic rivals, gradually reclaiming the galaxy through attrition. However, their survival depends on their ability to adapt to changing threats and their willingness to explore new solutions, such as creating synthetic allies or even attempting to restore organic life to their ranks. The Necrons' future is one of either enduring dominance or slow decline, determined by their capacity to evolve beyond their current limitations. For the Tau, the rapid expansion of their empire presents both opportunity and risk. While their caste-based system and controlled reproduction have allowed for efficient growth, they may face challenges in maintaining genetic diversity and societal cohesion. Should the Tau embrace further technological advancements in genetic engineering, they could mitigate these risks and establish themselves as a major galactic power. However, their reliance on centralized planning makes them vulnerable to disruptions, and a collapse of their population infrastructure could lead to fragmentation or stagnation. Chaos introduces a different set of long-term consequences. The reliance of mortal followers on biological reproduction to sustain their ranks means that any disruption to their populations could weaken Chaos's influence in the material realm. However, the inherently unstable and transformative nature of Chaos may allow for unexpected developments, such as the creation of entirely new life forms born from the warp itself. If Chaos were to expand its ability to influence reproduction on a larger scale, the consequences could be catastrophic for the galaxy, with entire populations transformed into corrupted beings under the sway of the Chaos gods. As for smaller and less understood races, their long-term survival remains uncertain. Many, like the Hrood and Rockgull, are vulnerable to external threats and environmental changes that could drastically impact their populations. However, their adaptability and niche survival strategies may allow them to endure in ways that larger factions cannot, serving as reminders of the galaxy's unpredictability. In the grander scheme, the reproductive strategies and survival mechanisms of each race are deeply interconnected with the galaxy's future. Changes in one faction's ability to reproduce can ripple outward, altering alliances, conflicts, and the balance of power. The long-term trajectory of the Warhammer 40,000 universe hinges on these dynamics, ensuring that the topic of reproduction remains a critical and endlessly fascinating aspect of its lore.